This is the iPhone 14 Pro Max in space black. I was going to order the deep purple color, which is new in this 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max series, but then I was really attracted to this space black, which is really black. And it's been a while since Apple released a very dark black phone. I'm glad I chose the space black and not the deep purple. Hi folks, Chuck's here. If you're thinking to upgrade to the iPhone 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max and wondering what's special about these two devices, Apple has released the iPhone 14, 14 Plus, and then the iPhone 14 Pro and the 14 Pro Max. There are no reasons to upgrade to the standard 14 and 14 Plus. They're the same devices. So if you're upgrading from iPhone 13 to iPhone 14 or 14 Plus, you don't have to. You can stay with the iPhone 13 model you have. But if you're upgrading from iPhone 11 or iPhone 10, then upgrading to 14 or 14 Plus, if that is what you're looking for, makes sense. But today in this video, I'm going to show you what are the key features that the 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max have, so you could upgrade to this instead of the 14 and 14 Plus. Number one, hardware is much better on the 14 Pro and Pro Max than the standard 14 and 14 Plus. The 14 Pro and Pro Max have the newer A16 Bionic chip, which is more powerful with respect to managing the graphics, the performance, and most importantly, the camera performance as well. And we'll get to the cameras next. So with this A16 Bionic chip, Apple is able to also drive power efficient displays, which also enables the other feature we're going to be looking at very soon, which is the always on display. So with the powerful chip, better display, you just got good reasons now to upgrade to the 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max. The display also is much brighter in the sunlight, so you can see much better than your 13 Pro Max, or even if you're carrying an old iPhone 12 or 11 or 10. So huge upgrades to the displays. The second generation 120 Hz Super Retina XDR display that is featured in the Pro Max and the Pro iPhones. Number two, always on display. Yes, always on display is finally arrived to iPhones, but it's only available to the Pro and Pro Max devices. The always on display on the Android devices, if you have noticed, they turn to grayscale. But Apple instead is choosing to dim the display such that those power efficient displays are able to go down to as low as 1 Hertz of screen refresh rate. Now in standard terms, if you don't understand these 1 Hertz and all these technical jargons, just think that the displays in your Pro and Pro Max are super efficient, that Apple is able to achieve more battery life and optimize your device to have the always on display by just dimming it slightly than what it would normally be. The problem with that though is the always on display looks like the phone is on. Usually in the Android world, when you have the always on display, it's very clear to the user that the screen is turned off and you have the always on display. But in iPhone 14 Pro and Pro Max, you still see the wallpaper. It's very clear even though the display is dimmed. You see all of the widgets. It always looks like it is completely on. The display is on all the time. So sometimes I feel like, oh, I need to switch off my screen, and I press the power button and boom, the screen now comes up and I realize that, oh, actually the always on display was turned on. So that's something to get used to, but you got the always on display now available in the Pro and Pro Max, which you don't get in the 14 and 14 Plus. There isn't much to configure here. Apple has just given one option under settings display, where you can either turn on the always on display or turn it off. There isn't any other settings that you can control, like you can't control the brightness, for example, which I think would be really nice to do that, but that isn't available yet for the always on display configuration. So it's just a toggle that you do now. Number 3, cameras. The 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max feature upgraded cameras with a much larger sensor. It features a 48 megapixel main camera, 12 megapixel ultra-wide camera, and a 12 megapixel telephoto camera with 3x optical zoom. Now, the 48 megapixel camera has a much larger sensor, so it's able to capture more light, and it's also able to generate sharper images and detailed images. So Apple is able to use that with the A16 Bionics image processing engine and give you some really great images. And that is a huge upgrade to just even thinking about upgrading from iPhone 13 Pro Max, right? And you can also shoot with 48 megapixels and get the full resolution. However, the size is going to be very large. And if you keep capturing images in 48 megapixel, your phone is going to run out of storage. If you're syncing them to Google Photos or iCloud Library, those are going to also go out of space. So be aware that shooting in 48 megapixels is going to take up a lot of space. Now, if you want to, here's how you can enable that setting. The 13 Pro and 13 Pro Max has the Pro RAW setting, right? You can actually capture an image in RAW format. That's pretty much is what enables capturing images in 48 megapixel resolution. If you go into settings, if you go into camera, and you'll have the option there to enable the Pro RAW, which captures images in 48 megapixel. You can also enable the ProRes video format if you want to capture the video in a very high resolution format. If you turn on those, you can go back to your camera and then you can tap on the Pro RAW option. So it's there if you want to enable, disable per capture. Another great update you get with the 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max is the updated cinematic mode that captures video in 4K resolution with 24 frames per second or 30 frames per second. That's a huge jump from 1080p 30 frames per second in the 13 Pro and 13 Pro Max. So those are some solid upgrades to the camera system. Number 4, dynamic island. The 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max don't have a notch. Instead, they have this pill-shaped area, what Apple calls the dynamic island. Yes, it's sort of a weird name, but the things that it does is really cool and very useful. So what is this dynamic island? Well, we have notifications that can update us on all the things that are happening with all these apps. Then you have widgets that you can place on the home screen to quickly glance and get some updates. What happens to the notifications that are ongoing, like these playing songs, or there's a timer, right? Or there is maps that is showing you directions. And Apple cleverly has thought about those and introduced this new thing called Dynamic Island that makes use of the space where all of the camera sensor, your Face ID sensor is there, which was previously housed within a notch, to give you a new widget-like experience for displaying those ongoing activities. It's really clever. Like, it's a hardware limitation right now. And Apple has made that hardware limitation to be useful enough for users consuming content. And it works out of the box with most of the Apple apps like music, calls, and even video calls and things like that, which will show you information about those ongoing activities. So if you have, if you play music, then it'll show the music is playing. And the way you interact with the dynamic island is you can touch and hold, and that will display the widget, or you can tap to go into the app. Those are the two interactions you have. Some app developers have made use of this dynamic island, the fact that there is a pill-shaped island, and created some awesome game called Hit the Island. It works like this. It's a standard ball game, and there's a block in the bottom. You basically have to hit the island with the ball and score points. The game is awesome. Like, once you start playing, you can't keep your phone down. So these are some of the different things that app developers can do. Number 5, not that much of a big deal, but it is exciting. The iPhone 14 model, now this also includes the standard 14, 14 Plus, the Pro and Pro Max, now feature startup sounds. So you can enable sounds for power on and power off. If you go into settings, accessibility, and then tap on audio visual, now you have the option to turn on the power on and power off sounds. And here's how it sounds. Not that you will upgrade for this reason, but it's something that if you have decided to upgrade for the camera, for the always on display, for the dynamic island, you might as well upgrade for the sound, the power on and power off sound, right? So those 5 reasons I think are great reasons to upgrade or to choose the 14 Pro and Pro Max than choosing the standard 14 and 14 Plus. Let me know in the comments what do you think about the 14 Pro and Pro Max. Do you like the deep purple color or would you prefer the space black? It's an easy answer. Choose the space black. It's an excellent, excellent color. Let me know in the comments what do you think about it. Until next time, bye.